All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are grateful that you made it back from lunch and assume only now the food comas will begin settling in. So here to my far side is Robert David. He is the Director of Corporate Learning at UC Berkeley. Robert has more than 30 years experience in client development roles, including working with many tech companies in Silicon Valley. He is the Executive Director of UC Berkeley's Extension HR Learning Advisory Board and is the Education Architect for UC Berkeley's University Partnership Program. I should mention UC Berkeley is not a current degreed partner, but depending on how this conversation goes, we might be able to change some things. Thank you for being with us, Robert. And so going back to you, Robert David, as you think about, you're in this unique position where as a university, you're issuing degrees. And so what's been the incentive around this emphasis that you have on continued education beyond that formal piece of paper? Tell us a little bit about that, and then how do you think about skill development in that context?
Yeah, so each one of our programs where I'm working at right now has an advisory council of people that are from practitioners to the business, and we're constantly getting reviewed of our material so that we make sure that it's basically meeting the skills that are required by industry or government or nonprofits. We run about 1,200 courses a year, at least just in the programs that I run in, and so we take away the programs that are not working in terms of student enrollments and bring in ones that are basically for the future where people are trying to train up their workforces. One of the most recent developments is the fact that we've gone now to more of a boot camp format for some of our programs where people are looking to take time off of work or being sent by their employer to come to Berkeley for 5 or 6 weeks and do a program there. So it's sort of changed the way we do some of our courses. And we also do a flipped classroom where people are studying online before they get to campus so that it's more for that interaction with the professor or the lecturer as opposed to past times where it might be throughout the entire course.
So just as a follow-up to that, how do you even know which skills to focus on at any given time, right? Because curriculums will lag the demand in the marketplace. And so you have this unique challenge of keeping up with the demand that's in the market, and that is probably pertinent within an enterprise as well as just within the labor market in general. How do you address that issue, and how do you make sure that wherever you're putting your resources to develop coursework, recruit students in, help them get through the programs, how do you keep a pulse on that?
So once a semester, we run our advisory council of CHROs and CLOs on campus. We're basically bringing them in on a consistent basis and asking them for their input. So it's a sort of a feedback loop. It's on a constant basis throughout the year. We're not waiting once a year or every 5 years to change our content.
Got it. So in your opinion, kind of to take that one step further, it's sort of one thing to keep a pulse on the market, and then it's another thing to realize I'm investing potentially millions of dollars into skills that will be outdated in a matter of months, of maybe a few years potentially. How do you think about that? How can you justify spending those dollars knowing that those skills will be outdated? We'll go here and then we'll go to your thoughts.
I was just going to say that not all skills need changing. I mean, look at some of the old school skills like leadership and management, sales. You know, there are things that aren't going to be changing every few years, but people want to have those soft skills, and a lot of the university programs actually sort of cater to that. When people are using people like Berkeley or Harvard to deliver a program, it usually is around soft skill development.
Great. And, you know, as you think about that kind of generally, we're getting at this sort of theme of we have to be investing in people and have people be willing to learn new skills or continue to hone and maintain some of more of these evergreen type of skills. So there's two parts to this question. One is, what are the skills that are more evergreen? And Maureen, I'd love your thoughts on that. And then the follow-up question is, what is the culture you need to set to create the environment where people can continue to learn and want to continue to learn new skills? What do you do with someone who's just not motivated to develop skills, right? Not everyone out there is saying, I can't wait to learn a new programming language.
Exactly. One of the first things I'd always recommend people is hire naturally curious people. And if you look around the room here, I'm sure most people are here because they want to learn, they want to take advantage of that. I don't think you could force feed, a skill onto somebody. They have to have sort of a motivation and incentive to do it. And you have to find the right incentive for the person. Is it promotion at work? Is it some sort of career progression they're going on? And then sort of match that up. And this is where potentially a degree could help out in this sort of identification along somebody's career path. But you can't force somebody to learn something they don't want to learn. That's not a winning solution.
As you think about, Robert David, as you think about the curricula that you create and the people that you have going through your programs, and it'd be helpful maybe to touch on who those people are, is your goal that they have dots when they leave those programs, when they take and finish those classes?
Absolutely. Every one of our courses has a syllabus. There's learner outcomes. There's hope for outcomes. And I forgot to mention before that all of our instructors are basically practitioners that know how to teach. And so not only are we getting it from the advisory, but from the people that are actually in the classrooms or online, they're actually maybe people from the audience here, maybe some Berkeley professors out here. And so we measure that and are looking at outcomes a year or 2 years later. The average age of one of our adult learners is 34. The median age is 31. So we do a lot of analytics and tracking of people going through it, see what success looks like. And, were they a director and now they're a senior director? Were they a director and they moved to a VP slot? So we're actually able to sort of measure that and manage that with the use of LinkedIn and seeing where people progress in their careers. So
Fantastic.
It is pretty critical to demonstrate success at Berkeley.
Yeah, thank you. William, I don't know if I know how to pronounce his last name, William Blaise, the SVP of HR at AT&T, he recently said this: there's going to be an expectation that your compensation will be tied to continuing to learn.
Are we not a degreed customer?
Variable pay based on learning? Is that the future?
No, I had lunch last week with former head of learning from one of the largest financial services companies in the U.S., and they're now talking about learning on the one-on-ones and the performance management reviews. So I think they're making it part of the discussion. It's not part of the discussion, it's going to get ignored or glossed over. But if they're putting it, the managers are putting it, what have you learned in the last month or last quarter, and they're actually measuring people on that, I think that's really a critical step.
Great. So I want to kind of switch gears for a minute and talk about the actual types of programs we create and how much freedom do we give to learners to kind of learn and follow whatever their own passions are. And I look at my own children and I see they have natural curiosities, and my role as their parent is one of them is to nurture that interest and help them learn and grow the way they want to. How much of that carries through into the organizational side or into professional development? In other words, on the one hand, you could have a full top-down program where we're saying, here are the skills you need to learn, and these are the only skills we care about you learning. On the other end of the spectrum, you could have learn whatever you want to learn. And we trust that some of that will match to what is needed in the organization.
Everybody here, probably in the audience, has company money to spend on education with universities or accredited institutions. And then individuals could obviously take whatever they want off the company time. One of the things that we get asked is, we don't require people to take education because it's going past the 40-hour work week, or it's going to be nights and weekends. And so that's where a lot of times we might get called from an L&D group to do a custom program during the day, spread out throughout the year, where there's assignments. And so it's like bringing college to the company as opposed to the other way around.
Mm. So just as we think about even the concept of all of these different ways to learn and learning based on my interest and my passions, it obviously leads its way into the measurement conversation. And so, Robert, I want to ask you this question of, how do we think about, how should we be thinking about measurement? And in particular, what are some underserved populations where this might be really helpful? So higher education or military veterans, for example. Yeah,
so we actually do a fair amount of work with the military at Berkeley. You wouldn't really put the two together, but we do. And they have GI Bill, but then we also do a bunch of what they call broadening programs. And so it's really based on how do we fit within their existing learning infrastructure and basically add to it through the professors or instructors at Berkeley. Most companies will, do some sort of assessment in terms of, again, skill needs going out 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and come to universities like ours and say, this is where we're going. Can you create curriculum that's going to actually match up to it to help train our people better?
Fantastic.
There you go.
Let's hear it for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen.